with 3 crucial games left, if that is your goal of making a bowl game, it seems strange to me to change that leadership and that voice with so little time to see it actually come to fruition, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you're not really giving Furry a lot of leeway and a lot of time to make a difference with a group that has struggled to have success all year long and has already had the change in another coach being fired just a couple weeks ago.
Welcome onto the sideline, everybody. I am Sports Director Matt Dowell, joined alongside Claire Foley for this episode, and we're back in the studio. We're back in our podcast studio, which it's been a couple weeks since we've been in here because it has been a busy time of year. Pray for your local journalists, everybody, because November is crazy.
We've lived a lot of lives in those couple weeks.
We have the end of college football's regular season, the start of basketball, high school football playoffs are underway, and, of course, this podcast is Gamecock focused, but, we are journalists that watch Fox, so we do a little bit of everything. We've got our HBCUs that are doing really well, Benedict, SC State that are having great seasons, so we cover a little bit of everything. We're all over the place. Claire, Jared, and I very rarely see each other this time of year when we're not filming together because we're everywhere. So, Claire, with all that being said, how you doing?
Yeah, it's Wednesday. Got men's basketball tonight. After today, it'll be 4 games in 5 days. So, staying busy. Luckily, at these games, they do feed us. So, really grateful for that.
Yes, we are. We are always grateful for the free food. I might have 2 or 3 plates at those meals, but hey, you got to take it when you get it. But today's show is a little busier with all of these sports colliding. We're going to start by previewing South Carolina and Texas A&M football on Saturday, and then we'll transition into women's basketball, who got a big win over Clemson on Tuesday night, and they're getting ready to take on Southern Cal on Saturday. And of course, there's a suspension of one of Don Staley's players in the midst of all that. So we have a lot coming up on women's basketball in a little bit, and we'll also touch on Lamont Paris and men's basketball. As Claire said, we're filming this on a Wednesday. They do play tonight, so we don't know the result of that game yet against Presbyterian, but still, that was a thriller against Southern Miss, so we got to talk a little bit about it at the end of it. But Claire, let's start with South Carolina and Texas A&M football. The Gamecocks have had a bye week, so they've had some time to breathe and reset after 4 losses in a row, and so it has been an eventful couple of weeks because, of course, the big news after the Ole Miss game was that Shane Beamer fired Mike Shula, his offensive coordinator. Mike Furry going to step in as the play caller, but as of now, there is no designated offensive coordinator for the rest of the season. But Claire, they got to win the next 3 games if they want to be bowl eligible. If they lose one more, they're out of bowl contention. So with all of that being said, what are your thoughts on the changes from Shane Beamer? Because I am shocked that he fired Mike Shula with only 3 games left. I just assumed at this point there would be no changes there. I thought it should have happened earlier in the season if this decision was going to be made. So I am surprised by the news. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that just in general, with only 3 games left, and as they're trying to make a push they have to win out if they want to make a bowl game. And I think that's a lot to ask to once again change what this offense looks like. And they talked about, obviously, every week they're trying to change things up in terms of the plays, and that's something that they worked on during the bye week, was adding and subtracting different plays from the playbook and getting used to a new voice and new energy with that group. But it's also with 3 crucial games left, if that is your goal of making a bowl game, it seems strange to me to change that leadership and that voice with so little time to see it actually come to fruition, if that makes sense. Like, it's like you're not really giving Furry a lot of leeway and a lot of time to make a difference with a group that has struggled to have success all year long and has already had the change in another coach being fired just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what the offense looks like against the Aggies. It's a pretty tough opponent, to go out there and try and make changes, especially at College Station. The Aggies are playing so well right now, and we'll get into the actual matchup coming up in just a few minutes. But I'm interested to see, if there are drastic changes, drastic tweaks to this offense on Saturday. Saturday to see kind of, okay, what was the issue? Was it a Shula thing? Is it a bigger than that kind of thing? So, and I don't know, it's going to be hard to gauge against the Aggies, I think, because they are so confident and playing so well. They're undefeated. They are number 3 in the country. They're playing so well. So it's going to be tough. And this really, when you think about bowl eligibility, this game, I mean, this may be the hardest game you could ask for with everything that's on the line and all of these changes. So I don't know what to expect on Saturday.
And that's why it's kind of why the change was kind of confusing to me at this specific time, because if South Carolina goes out and loses by a lot, that doesn't necessarily say anything about this current new change in offense.
And the season's over.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Then you're not playing for a bowl game, and then you have Coastal and Clemson left, and obviously they have a chance to potentially play spoiler for Clemson in that, for their hopes of a bowl game. But I just don't see where the advantage at this point for this season is to have made the change. Now, if it was more so for future looking and maybe like for a recruit standpoint and to show the current team, okay, we do expect this certain level of success, and when it's not happening, we're all accountable for our actions. This was the decision that was made. I just don't know how much we'll find out about this South Carolina team, especially against the Aggies, but even the rest of the season.
Yeah, and Shane Beamer did say it was 100% his decision to fire Mike Shula. I think some people maybe thought, okay, did someone higher up say that's enough? Get rid of him. But Beamer did say it was 100% his decision. 1 billion percent his decision. And I will say, Claire, because I know this week in press, Shane kind of pushed back against the narrative that he doesn't hire good offensive coordinators. But personally, and I understand Shane's point of view on it, but personally, I do think that it has been his Achilles heel. And I do think when you look forward to next season, his next hire is a make or break hire, in my opinion. When you think about, I think Shane Beamer is safe on the hot seat. Like, he's not on the hot seat at all at this point. I think his job is safe until next season. When you think about the college football landscape, coaches are getting fired for when having winning records.
Right.
So when you look ahead to next year, the offense cannot look like this again. They can't have a season like this again. Whoever he hires next has to be a home run hire. I don't know who that person is, but whoever Shane hires next has to be the guy, and I think it has to be a drastic difference offensively next season in order for the Beamer era to continue on.
And I agree, and I think that's also kind of the contradictory part of this, where obviously he's going to vouch for the decisions that he has made leading his program, and as he should defend his decisions, because those coaches have gone on to get hired elsewhere. So that says something about the quality of people even that he's hiring, that they would want to be accepted into other programs and stuff like that. But he also says that with those offensive coordinators, they have not scored enough points and they've turned the ball over too much. So that tells me they're consistently inconsistent.
Yeah.
And they're consistently not where they want to be. So that would mean there needs to be a change there. So maybe that means we need to reassess who and what kind of coach is being hired. And that's something he was asked about in the press conference the other day. The past offensive coordinators have at least had some level of NFL experience. So he was asked if that's something that's just his go-to, that he wants to hire someone with professional football level experience. And he said not necessarily, but also talked about defending his decisions. And so, yes, he should defend them. And I'm sure he is assessing and trying to redefine maybe what he's looking for. And I think it's definitely something that has to be done heading into year 6.
Yeah, it has to be done. And the offense it's just been bad. We've said it every single week on this podcast. The offense has not been good. It's not even just an opinion of us. It is just a fact.
Right.
Everyone can see it. So there has to be changes made, and especially after last season. Because to me, like, even if South Carolina beats A&M, Coastal, and Clemson, I think the season is kind of a disappointment no matter what happens going forward. So he has to look at next season as, okay, this has to be the guy to take us to the next level offensively, because Clayton White and the defense, they're doing their thing. They are consistently very good, and so they need an OC that's going to match what Clayton and the defense are doing, because the defense is doing their job for the most part. The offense, though, not so much. But when we talk about tweaking, did you want to say anything else before we hear from Beamer?
I was going to say, especially considering you're most likely losing Lenore Sellers.
Yeah.
So it's not just an offensive coordinator position. There are two openings, actually, in the offensive room for coaches, and then add Lenore Sellers onto that. That's a whole lot of changes coming into another year where he could potentially be on the hot seat.
Yeah, because, you speak of Lenore's, he has probably at most one more year with South Carolina. If he doesn't go to the NFL this year, maybe one more year in college before he goes. But the timeline for him is not going to be that much longer in the grand scheme of things. But when we talk about tweaking the offense, Shane Beamer was asked about that in this week's press conference, about what they're doing as a staff to make this offense have better results out on the field.
I'd say there's been a pretty good tweaking. There's been some takeout, but then there's also been some add. So when you look at it, I'd say we probably have about the same number, or we will end up. We're getting ready to game plan third down and red zone here this afternoon and tomorrow. But when it all is said and done, we'll end up with about the same amount of plays, and there'll be some things. Certainly, you can't have radical changes, but there's some things that from that Mike and Sean and Black and the rest of the staff maybe like that they want to emphasize, or things that we were doing before that again, they were part of the offensive staff when Mike Shula was the offensive coordinator, but it wasn't like they just went in their offices and Mike put together the plan and said, here it is. They were all in there and they're all accountable for it. But certainly there's different voices in there now that are leading the way, and there may be some things that they feel a little bit stronger about than maybe Mike did. So a little bit less of some stuff, maybe a little bit more of things, but ultimately doing what gives us the best chance to be successful, that fits our players, which is what we're trying to do each and every week. But it's been good. It's been good that we had a bye week last week, David. Mike and the offensive staff, they really spent a lot of time the Sunday after the Ole Miss game and then the Monday after the Ole Miss game grinding through, kind of putting together an initial plan, and then Tuesday and Wednesday with meetings and practice, and then Thursday before guys went out on the road recruiting, and then back in here on Sunday. So it's been good. I'm eager to watch them play on Saturday.
All right, South Carolina taking on Texas A&M on Saturday. Of course, the Aggies number 3 in the country. So let's take a look at the series history and what's at stake really quickly. I'll get into the series history first before Claire tells us what's at stake for the Gamecocks. The series history between these two, though, pretty recent. It's pretty much all, well, it is all in the last decade. Saturday will be the 12th time they have ever played. Texas A&M leads that series 9-2, but Claire, in College Station, they are 5-0 against the Gamecocks. So it has proven to be one of the more difficult road environments for South Carolina to play in. However, the good news for South Carolina, Claire, is that their 2 wins have come in the last 3 meetings against Texas A&M, including that thriller last year in Columbia. That was just an epic game at Williams-Brice Stadium. So, they have won 2 of the last 3, but when they play at Texas A&M, it has proven to so far be impossible to get a victory. So, with all that being said, what is at stake?
Well, South Carolina is looking to snap their 4-game losing streak to keep them alive for hopefully making it to a bowl game. It would give the Gamecocks their best win overall and their best road win since defeating 3rd-ranked Georgia in Athens in 2019. It would give them their 3rd win in the last 4 meetings over the Aggies, and like you said, 1st win in College Station. And of course, for yet another week, it would be Shane Beamer's 250th win as a college coach.
So we'll
still
see.
After it.
It'd be a big 250 if they can get this done. And it should be said, Texas A&M, like we said, they're 9-0 on the year. They're number 3 in the country. They look like one of the best teams in the country, like a true national championship contender. Not even just a playoff team. They look like a championship contender. And also what's interesting is they have played their last 3 games on the road. So they are coming back home for the first time in a month. Of course, College Station, that stadium seats over 100,000. So it is huge. It's going to be electric.
They're going to be ready for it.
They're going to be ready for this one, and they're going to see this as a huge opportunity to get a comfortable win if you're on the Texas A&M side of this matchup. So when we talk about what our predictions are for this Saturday, Claire, I don't even know if we need a score, because I think everyone is picking Texas A&M to win this game, and don't think that's a controversial opinion. If South Carolina can pull off the upset, that would be incredible for the Gamecocks. I don't see it happening with the chaos that's going on, with the staff and the offense and everything. I think Texas A&M just looks very polished. They've had really good wins all season. They've had some close wins that they've had to battle through and, come up with the goods when they need it. They just look confident and they look playoff ready. And I think it's just going to be really, really hard. But I do have to say, I said the same thing about the Alabama game, and South Carolina went out there, and that was a barn burner. So that was a great game. So maybe I need to predict like a huge blowout for Texas A&M for South Carolina.
For South Carolina, too. Yeah, I think it's going to be the Aggies. I mean, Shane Beamer himself said it. He thinks they're one of the best teams in the country right now, and they're a really complete team playing in all three phases. And I think that's going to be difficult when South Carolina is dealing with their own frustrations and their own changes. But South Carolina's defense has been really good, especially against really good teams like Alabama that you mentioned. So we'll just have to see.
We'll have to wait and see. Like I said, I don't know if we need to give score predictions for this one because I think Texas A&M is the heavy, heavy favorite going into this game on Saturday, and it's going to be an electric crowd.
At this point, we still don't really know what to expect from South Carolina.
I think that's the crazy part is what is this going to be, week 10? This is the 10th game? 10th game it's the 10th game for South Carolina?
After 2 bye
weeks. And if
weeks.
someone asked me, what is South Carolina's identity? What is the identity of Gamecock football this season? I would say I don't know. Yeah. I would say their defense is really good.
Right.
Outside of that, I could not tell you what the identity. Maybe the identity is that I don't know what the identity is.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Unidentifiable.
And I think that's a problem. Because I think when you look at teams like Texas A&M and Ole Miss and Alabama, you can look at them and say, this is what they do well. These are their strengths. These are their weaknesses. With South Carolina, it's kind of like every week we're like, I don't know what to expect from them. I don't know what team to expect when they show up.
Yeah.
But I think at this point you can say we expect the defense to show up and the offense, I don't know. I just don't know. But anyway, South Carolina and Texas A&M kick off at noon on Saturday, and we will have our instant reaction episode from that on Sunday morning here on South Carolina Sideline. We're going to take a quick ad break. When we come back, we'll talk women's basketball, the suspension of one of Dawn Staley's sophomores, and we'll give our thoughts on their win over Clemson and look ahead to their game against the other USC. Dum, dum, dum. Well, South Carolina women's basketball taking on Clemson on Tuesday night. They got the win 65-37. Before we give our thoughts on their win over the Tigers, we should say that there was some major breaking news right before tip-off, and one that none of us saw coming, and that is that sophomore guard Maddy McDaniel, who's been out for the past couple of games with injury. She hurt her knee in that opening game against Grand Canyon. The team announcing that Maddy McDaniel has been suspended. No timeline on it, no details. They just said she would not be at the game. And afterwards, we would play you a soundbite from Dawn on it, but Dawn really didn't say that much after the game on the matter, just saying that she doesn't think she'll be at the game in California this weekend against the Trojans, and that if Maddy wants to play again this season, it's kind of up to her. So we don't have a ton of details on this, and I don't really know what to say because I don't want to speculate and do all that kind of stuff, but I have to say, it was a shocking news. None of us saw it coming. And also, it's big for South Carolina because roster-wise, Claire, now they're down to 9.
Yeah.
The roster is just not very big at the moment. And, bodies matter. And Maddy McDaniel's been the first off the bench and through the exhibitions and through their first game against Grand Canyon. So she seemed to be the sixth man, the first one off the bench for this season. It's a big loss. It's a big loss right now for South Carolina, and hopefully she comes back this season.
Yeah, and keep in mind, too, we talked about how she was injured the day before in the press availability leading into the game. Dawn Staley did say then that Maddy would not be playing in the game because she's still rehabbing from that injury. So we knew going into the Clemson game that she was not going to be available.
Yeah.
Then it was released probably about an hour before tip-off that she had been suspended. And like you said, she did not get into any detail as to why. When she was asked to just no, she's not sharing any information about it. Doubt it that she'll be there. And it's up to her if she plays any this season. And so there are still two separate things here. She is injured and recovering from that injury, and she's suspended. It's up to her if she'll come back. And so the timeline of both of those things is kind of murky. So where does one stop and the other start? And I'm sure once the suspension part of it ends, we'll get information on that. And if it is her injury is rehabbed, she's good to go, then that be, or maybe she'll still need some time there. But definitely in the Clemson game yesterday, the Wednesday now, talking about Tuesday, you could tell that South Carolina was tired.
Yeah.
The Clemson was playing them tight, and they were having to use everybody out on the court. And especially by the third quarter, Clemson outscored them in the third quarter. Granted, it was only by 1 point, but South Carolina was coming off the court at the break visibly tired and frustrated.
And you wonder, is that a roster thing? Is it just because they are playing more minutes than they are accustomed to with, only 9 available? And when you think about it, like Adele didn't play that many minutes. So then you think, okay, 8, there's really only like 7 of them that really played major minutes against the Tigers. So that is very different from, the 12, 13 deep that we're kind of accustomed to with the Gamecocks. We should say Clemson is getting a lot better. Sean Poppy's doing great things up there at Clemson. They've got a big recruiting class coming in next year. So they are getting better than they have been in years past. And I did think it was South Carolina's worst game of the season, but I should say I don't do overreactions to basketball in November, especially games where South Carolina won by 28, in the end. And that just shows you the standard of this South Carolina women's basketball team, because they ended up playing a great fourth quarter. They outscored Clemson 20-2. So did they play well? No. Did the defense look great? Not really, especially on the perimeter.
At some point.
And would Dawn Staley say the same thing? Yeah, she did say so afterwards. But I don't think it's something that I'm going to sit here and be like, wow, well, they aren't making the Final Four. Like, come on now. Like, it is November, y'all.
And that was something that they talked about after the game. It was straight up asked to them, do you think that you were tired because of roster size and because you're having to play more minutes? And they said, no, I think it's only the third game of the year. It's November. We have to build back that endurance of playing so much. But also at the same time, it was a game that they had to really play all 4 quarters. And you talk about maybe it's like 7 people who are getting the majority of the minutes. One of those being Raven Johnson, and she only had 1 basket in the game. So when you are limited in the number of people that are getting the bulk of the playing time, and they're not supplementing you with the amount of points that you're used to, that's when you really feel the weight of that roster size.
And I have to say, after they beat Bowling Green, I said this team was, in the first 2 games, was reminding me of the team 2 years ago, where it just felt like anybody could score at any given moment. 1 through 13, however many were on that team 2 years ago. But this game yesterday kind of showed me signs of last year's team, where it was just hot potato and you shoot it, no, you shoot it, no, you shoot it. And I think sometimes, especially for, like the guards, sometimes I think they get too pass focused, and it's like the shot is there, just, shoot it. You can score that ball. And so we saw a little bit too much of passivity on the offensive side, which was an opposite of what we've seen through the first 2 games and even the 2 exhibitions. They have not done that, to where everyone kind of looked stagnant. Everyone looked a little bit unsure about who should shoot the ball. So we'll see what that looks like on Saturday. But anything else you want to say, Claire, before we hear from Dawn Staley?
And it's just about confidence on that front in terms of shooting, because it felt like it was either or, especially in those middle 2 quarters for South Carolina, that they were either passing it too much and nobody wanted to shoot, or there was one pass and a quick shot that really wasn't a good look. And then they weren't getting the rebound, and it's just like, okay, you just spent, and as Dawn Staley said in postgame, you just spent 25 seconds on defense defending really hard, and then your offensive possession is done in 3 seconds, and then you're back on defense and having to play hard again. You don't give yourself the break of even passing it off to each other to try to find a solid look. And she said that comes into play of them being a new group together. Like she had said, they're relatively young in terms of playing together. Now, that being said, I saw somebody see that soundbite online and say, mind you, they're starting 2 seniors and a junior or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, yes, they are upperclassmen, but that 5 have never played together beyond the past 2 games.
Yeah.
So it's learning how to play together and adjust to that chemistry.
Well, that's a good segue, because Dawn Staley, speaking on that subject, let's hear what she had to say about this game against Clemson and what she's seen from her team 3 games in.
Change was just a more disciplined unit out there on the floor that was connected on both sides of the ball. We reversed the ball with that group a lot more, and then we got good looks. So it just was that simple. We locked in defensively, and we rebounded the basketball and came back down and didn't take quick shots and moved the defense. And when you do that against a team like Clemson, you're going to really get some good looks by a lot of different people. So it wasn't just one person. It was multiple people that had to guard 5 players on the floor.
So again, South Carolina had a great start. They got out to a 20-7 lead against Clemson. They finished on a 20-2 run in the fourth quarter. It was just that middle portion that it wasn't great. It didn't look good offensively or defensively. But again, I'm not one that's going to sit here and be like, wow, this team just doesn't have it. They're going to be fine. They're going to be in contention. They'll get it together. It is literally the season is a week old.
First week of the season.
I don't think there's any room for overreaction. I say this too. I was watching UCLA Oklahoma. That's a great game, top 10 game. They both looked okay, but they're still building their chemistry as well. If I'm going to sit here and say that UCLA and Oklahoma aren't going to be in contention in March, that's a crazy thing to say. Everyone is building, everyone's getting chemistry together, and all of these teams are going to be fine come February, March. February, the way I judge basketball in February, very different than the way I judge it this time of year. But going off of that, Claire, South Carolina does have their biggest game of the season so far on Saturday. They're taking on the other USC, Southern Cal, on Saturday night at 9 o'clock here on the East Coast. And we got to plug our TV station because it is on Watch Fox on Saturday night. So excited for that game to have a national audience. It should be really fun. No Juju Watkins, but Claire, I got to say, going into this season, I didn't really know how seriously I was taking the Southern Cal team without Juju, because she has been their identity for 2 seasons. I said, I don't really know how good they're going to be. I don't know what to expect from them. I really thought, okay, South Carolina is going to blow this team out once Juju went out for the season. But I have to say, I watched Southern Cal take on NC State this past weekend, another top 10 team. And they looked real good. And they beat the Wolfpack in Charlotte. And I was very surprised at the chemistry from the team, at all the people who were contributing. Jazzy Davidson looked incredible for the Trojans. And that was a big win for them early on the season. Now they find themselves at number 8 in the country. So this matchup has become much more interesting to me after watching how Southern Cal played against NC State.
Yeah, and I think it's really good for this South Carolina team to meet that caliber of a team this early on. Obviously, the first 2 games, it was over pretty early. Last night, even though it felt like they had to play the full 4 quarters, they were still up by a good margin.
Yeah,
a good while of the game.
You never thought South Carolina was going to lose that game.
Right. And because we've been so spoiled with this team, it felt like a lot closer than it actually was. But this will be a really good opportunity for South Carolina to test their endurance, to test their team chemistry. And against Clemson, they got a lot of favors in terms of Clemson is a 3-heavy team. I mean, they shot 33 3-pointers, only made 5. That's not necessarily the kind of execution you're going to see in a USC.
Yeah.
So bringing it more to the kind of talent you're going to see once SEC play starts.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see it. And obviously it's a fun matchup with the USU versus USC. Get them out on the road, West Coast. And that's a great time for teams to work on that team bonding and chemistry. So I'm excited for it.
And I think this is a game where leadership from Raven Johnson, Tessa Johnson, these upperclassmen who have been with South Carolina for a while, who have played in these big time matchups, because when you think about even big transfers like Latson and Medina Oko, they were great, players on really good teams. But this is a little step up. This is a step up. This is a top 10 matchup. You're South Carolina. You're taking on another top 10 team. The stakes are a little higher than I think even what they are used to. And they're experienced players as well. So I think players like Raven and Tessa are going to be big in getting the team mentally kind of ready to take on a Southern Cal team that's going to come on really with nothing to lose. Because I don't think anyone's really, at least, well, I'll speak for myself. I still expect South Carolina to win this game on Saturday, but I think it's going to be a great test. And I think the Trojans got to look at it as they're coming in as the underdogs, because I don't know, the whole narrative around them is, oh, they don't have Juju. So
right.
I think they're trying to prove who they are as a team and say, no, we still got great players and great teams, a great coach, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of interesting dynamics at play on Saturday, but tip off at 9:00. Again, I think South Carolina is going to win this game. I'm also excited for this matchup next year because it's in Greenville.
Yeah.
It's a whole kind of series that they're doing. So it's in Greenville, South Carolina next year. Hopefully Juju will be healthy for them and for them next year. And, we can see her here in South Carolina. But anything else you want to say about Saturday's matchup? Because I am looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to seeing how South Carolina looks against another top 10 team.
And I also want to point out that even though she's injured, Chloe has been there at all the practices we've been able to go to and at the games, of course. So I also wouldn't discount her influence in helping get some of those new people prepared for a business trip like this, and even the caliber of competition with USC.
Yeah, the Chloe. Man, it's still just like, I think every time we see her, we're like, man, it's such a bummer. It's such a bummer. But there is a lot that you can add on the bench as a player that's injured and is observing, just everything you can contribute to your teammates. There is an impact even in this situation for someone like Chloe Kitts. But again, tip off at 9 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday between USC and USC. I'll let you guys debate who's who. But looking forward to a good game on Saturday. Quick shout out to Michi Johnson. Again, we're not going to talk too much about the guys right now, simply because they are playing the night of the day we're recording this episode. They play Presbyterian, and so by the time you guys are listening to this episode or watching it, they will have the results of that game. So. Yes, it will be outdated. But shout out to Michi Johnson, because Claire, you were at that overtime win against Southern Miss.
Crazy.
I was at home like, what's going on? And Michi completely put the team on his back, and it was pretty incredible to watch.
And what was so funny is afterwards, just how Michi is, very, very humble guy. When after they sang the alma mater and everything, getting his team together, and he's like, guys, this was a team win. We did this together. And his teammates were like, no, Michi Johnson won this game. What are you talking about?
It was awesome. I mean, talk about a welcome back.
Yeah,
that was just
sure.
amazing for Michi. I do have to say, if there's one thing I'm going to say about the men's team, yes, it was a great win. Am I kind of concerned after that? A little bit, simply because there's not a lot of post play at all going on. And if you want to compete in the SEC, you gotta have post play.
You can't rely solely
points
on threes. And what was a big concern or a big problem for them last year that kind of started creeping into that game was the turnovers.
Yes.
So really got to clean that up.
Yeah, so we'll see the theme of that as the season continues. But our next episode, thanks for watching, everybody, and thanks for listening as always. And thank you to everyone for the kind words about my interview with Rashida Edwards. It's been really well received, and I know you guys enjoyed it. And hopefully we can get more parents on the podcast to give us their perspectives. Our next episode will be on Sunday morning. We'll have our reaction from South Carolina, Texas A&M football. And Jared and I will give you guys our reaction also to the Battle of the USCs on Saturday night. So that episode will be out on Sunday morning. She's Claire Foley. I'm Matt Dowell. Thank you guys as always for watching and listening. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube or follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or Amazon Music. She's Claire. I'm Matt. We'll see you next time here on South Carolina Sideline.